missed me. Y'all ain't saw me in a little bit. So I have today a special treat for you guys. For Winning Wednesday, we have a true winner on here, okay? Now, y'all already know the routine. So if you have any wins that you want me to go over, go ahead and put them in the chat. But right now, I want to focus on this winner I got right here with me right now. This is Derek Billingsley. He is also known as the tax exempt hero. Derek is going to bring us some sauce in regards to being tax exempt and functioning in the tax exempt sector. So Derek's been doing this for over 30 years. He is the SME in this area, the subject matter expert. And so I'm gonna let Derek introduce himself and then we'll take any questions that you guys may have. Go ahead, take it, Derek.
Welcome. Thank you guys for so much for having me here on YouTube with you. I am excited. I am looking forward to sharing some great information with you in regards to tax exemption. A lot of people think of tax exemption as, you've heard the term before, nonprofit, right? So I want to bust that myth up tonight and show you that tax exemption is really a license from the Internal Revenue Service to do business tax-free. And when you think about it in that way, you're not thinking non-benefit, right? Because non-profit means non-benefit, because a profit is a benefit, right? So that's the reason why you see a lot of people who have so-called nonprofit organizations struggle, because they believe that there's no benefit in it, but they want to help people. And I commend people who want to help other people. I love helping people, and I love helping people who help people. So that's the reason why I got into the whole tax exempt sector, is because I wanted to be able to help those who help others, right? So with that, I'm sure you guys got some questions. You want to jump in, I'll talk a little bit later about how I got involved in tax exemption and what was my process. I'm sure you guys may have some questions around that, but I don't want to take up too much time talking about me. Instead, I'd rather answer your questions so that you can get where you came here to get tonight.
I forgot I muted out. I'm gonna ask my question because I
Okay.
I I want you to go over this with them. So what inspired you to become the expert at being tax exempt?
So what inspired me was, in the 90s, I got caught up in addiction. So I ended up in addiction treatment. And through that process, I felt such a strong desire to give back, right? I never thought that I would have been one to want to help others. I had been a hustler all my life. I had been, I was a drug dealer, and, I ended up, violating the player's rule, which is don't get high on your own supply. Ended up in treatment, went through treatment for like a year and a half. And from doing that experience in the residential treatment program, I learned that I was not sent to earth just for me, that I had a purpose in life, and that me going through that fire of dealing with addiction was not just for me, but it was for me to be able to help other people. So I developed a very strong desire to want to help others while I was in treatment. And then once I got out of treatment, I started volunteering at another treatment facility. And in short order, they saw my passion, and so they asked me to join the staff, the paid staff, and that they were going to teach me how to become a counselor. Well, I joined the staff, as you might imagine, and then, within about a year and a half, I was promoted to campus life director, which put me on the administrative side of the business. And it was there, I like to say it was God, like, taking me through the steps, right? Preparing me to be where I am today to help other people with tax exemption. So what I learned when I got promoted to campus life director was that this big treatment program, which was one of the largest treatment programs in the state of Georgia for addiction at that time, they were receiving government contracts in all of the different program areas that they had, right? So they had a pregnant postpartum program, had a men's program, women's program, HIV program, all around addiction, right? And they had contracts for each one of these program categories. In addition to that, they were operating as a 501c3 tax exempt organization, which meant that they were able to operate their business without the concern of paying federal income tax. So that was my first exposure to tax exemption. And I was like, I like this, right? So when I left the organization and I started my own organization in 1999, what I did was I knew right away that I wanted to go after government contracts and I wanted to set my organization up, my company, my business up as a tax exempt organization. So that way I would not have the extra stress of paying income taxes on the revenue that we generated, which would allow me to be able to help more people without the concern of like chasing grants and all of that stuff too, and being able to save money on income tax. So what I did was I hired a guy, a consultant, to teach me the process, right? I said, listen, man, I don't want you to do it for me. I want you to teach me how to do it because I have a strong desire to help other people too. So I knew right away that I wanted to be able to help other people develop their tax exempt organizations too, because the more people that I can impact, the better, right? So I paid the guy to teach me how to do the tax exempt organization, how to set it up, how to expedite the process. So I wasn't waiting 6, 9 months and all that stuff. We got it done in about 2 weeks, which was like rapid, right? So I learned the whole process about expediting it. And then, I started my program and I went after government contracts. We was able to secure a government contract in about 6 months. And we had developed the tax exempt organization. And so, yeah, that's how I learned about the process and it inspired me. And then I started helping other people by doing their tax exempt organizations, setting up their programs, showing them how to connect with the government to get government contracts and the like. And so it's been an amazing ride. I've had the opportunity to work with other companies or the other organizations that are US based but have operations outside of the country. So I've had an opportunity to travel to about 50 countries around the world and work with some of those organizations too in helping them to be able to set up, do proper governance and things like that in the tax exempt sector. So it has been a absolute joy because I get a chance to help people that I'll never come in contact with, right? By helping those people who help them. So that's part of my mission on this planet. I'm glad that I was able to discover what that was before it got too late, right? Because a lot of people come to the earth, and they exist and they never find out why they are here and what's their purpose and what they should be doing to fulfill their assignments. So my life is very fulfilled because I am working in my assignments and my divine purpose, which is to help other people and especially helping those who help others. So that's how I got involved with 501c3 tax exemption. And I love it. And I love helping people who help other people.
That's amazing, Derek. That is so amazing. Look, I felt that because I know that I know my purpose. So I know how that feels. It's an amazing feeling to walk around and know what your actual purpose is. And so I just give you kudos on that. And so one of the questions that came through was, can you give a couple of examples of how much being tax exempt has saved someone?
Oh, sure. Tax exemption status saves a lot of money. So if you think about it, when you're running a business, there's all kind of taxes. So the
Boy.
government use you to be a tax collector, right? So they use you to be a tax collector. So not only do you have taxes on your profits, right? But then you got payroll taxes. There's a whole lot of different taxes involved when you are running a business. Now, that being said, it's a great question. You can save all of the income tax money, but when you have employees, you still have to pay payroll tax on those employees.
Hmm.
One of the things that I was able to do, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, Myrrie, but I reached out to the Internal Revenue Service and I said, well, listen, what if I don't have employees? What if I only employ subcontractors or 1099?
Hmm.
And they said, yeah, you can do that. I was like, oh, great.
That's why I need to do business in Georgia. Man.
So I was like, okay, great. So then that eliminated also the unemployment tax, right?
Hmm.
Because I was able to bring on independent contractors. Now that means that I can't tell them that they got to be at the office a certain time and certain. I
I
can't tell them
know.
anything like that, right? You know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
do the job, make sure you do what it is that you do with the clients, that kind
Hmm.
of thing. I can't put any time parameters on them or anything like that, right? So, but it still works because the clients receive what they receive, and I don't have the responsibility of being a tax collector for the government.
Yeah. Because, boy, I feel that pain. That payroll tax running, anywhere from seven to $10,000 each payroll.
Mhm.
That's crazy. So,
It
oh
is.
my gosh, I wish I could. I don't know. We might have to restructure this thing. You just gave me something else. Every time I talk to you, Derek, you give me something to think about.
Yeah, well, I mean that's a
Man.
beautiful thing, right? And,
Yeah.
I love helping people. I love sharing information that's helpful. So yeah, I mean that's one of the things that you may want to consider, right? Is
Yes.
employing independent contractors and allowing them. Now you got to be careful not to have them work like certain hours and all of that,
I
and you
already
have to make
know.
sure that
Look.
you have to make sure that they build you,
Yeah,
right?
everybody that follows me already know I got sued before, so it's
Right.
all good in regards to that. But man, but let me just say hello. I have members that came in. Hello, Ellen. How are you? If you guys have any questions, put them in the chat. If you guys have any wins this week, make sure you put them in the chat. Okay? And we'll get those questions answered for you. And so, uh, second question that came through is, what's the first step someone should take when deciding to create a 501(c)(3) organization?
My suggestion would be to go to the Internal Revenue website, look at Form 1023. And after you look at that, my next suggestion would be to reach out to a 501(c)(3) tax exempt consultant and have them to help you. Now, that doesn't have to be me, right? There are several people who help people with developing their 501(c)(3) tax exempt status, right? Um, Now, you get what you pay for, right? I would say that. But for me, what I've come to know is that, to create leverage and to cut your learning curve, right? It is better to invest in yourself, to have someone who's an expert at what it is that you need to help you to get there with speed. So with my organization, we only do tax exempt approval statuses the expedited way. So typically, from the time we file our tax exempt status or tax exempt applications with the Internal Revenue Service, we're able to get approvals within 2 weeks. Now, typically, the IRS will say on their website that it's anywhere from 3 to 9 months for them to consider your approval. Again, once we do them, we get them back within 2 weeks. Now, you can go to the IRS website and you can try to figure it all out on your own, and you can waste a lot of time, and you can not put the proper language in the documents that need to go with it. And then you can file everything and you think you're saving money because, oh, well, the filing fees is like $600, so I could do that myself. And you can go through all of that, right? And you can wait a year and not be approved. And the IRS send you 20 questions to answer, and you don't know how to answer any of them because you don't know the language that's needed to go in the accompanying document. So my suggestion would be to reach out to someone who's an expert at 501c3 tax exemption and have them to help you walk through the process.
Yes, yes. Because Derek says you get what you pay for, but out
Absolutely.
here in these streets, in this world right now, sometimes you don't get what you pay for. So, so be very, very careful. I'm always telling y'all, be careful about who you work with. You see someone, anyone that comes on my platform is legit. So therefore, you already see someone that does this. So I say he'll say you don't have to work with him, but I suggest you reach out and you work with Derek because he's been doing this a long time. And just like me, his name is good out here in these streets. All right. So let's see. Okay. I know you answered this question for me before, but I want you to give clarity. So, someone is asking, would you recommend a LLC or a S corp?
So when it comes to tax exemption, that is a corporation, right? So it is considered, you get the corporation on the state level. So on the state level, and this is probably what trip a lot of people up, right? Because an LLC is not going to work when you're talking about getting the tax exempt status from the Internal Revenue Service. But what will work is on the state level, you get incorporated as a nonprofit corporation. So it is a corporation, it's a corporate status, right? So you get incorporated on the state level as a profit corporation, and then that corporation allows you to, if it's done correctly, would allow you to file that document along with your bylaws with the IRS with your application form 1023 for tax exempt status, right? And then, so the IRS actually is the one who provides the tax exempt status, but the corporation is done at your state level. So it would not be an LLC, it would be a corporation.
Yes. See, I knew that, y'all, from talking to Derek. But I just wanted you to give some clarity to that person. So let's see. How can a nonprofit or tax exempt business leaders ensure they remain compliant with state and federal regulations year after year?
Well, one of the ways that they can ensure that they stay compliant with regulations year after year is that at Tax Exempt Hero, my organization, we have a coaching program. And so one of the things that we do with our clients is we go over compliance issues. I also have a book on compliance with 501c3 tax exemption, and it's called a tax exempt impact hack, right? And in that book, it's a downloadable book. In that book, it goes over all of the compliance issues as it relates to your 501c3 tax exempt status. So, and we cover all of that also during our coaching calls. with our clients who are in our coaching program, making sure that they're compliant. And then part of our coaching program too is making sure that we issue reminders to our clients about state compliance. So in each state, they have, annual registration, right? For your corporation or your LLC, whatever it is that you may have. So on your state level, it would be for your corporation, which would be your tax exempt organization, right? So they have compliance issues where requirements for you to file your annual registration is what it's called in most states. So we issue reminders for our clients that you need to file your annual registration, because if you don't file your annual registration in your state, what will happen is they will dissolve your organization. And if they dissolve your organization, then that means that it's not in existence anymore, right? And a lot of times they'll let you reactivate it, depending on what state you're in. They'll let you reactivate it, and you have to pay like back fees and stuff like that. But it's not a good look to have your organization be, you know, dissolved, because it
Right.
says that you are not paying attention to your business. It says that it's not that important to you. And so why would someone want to assist you if you're not paying attention to your business, right? Why would a state or a county or a city want to contract with you if you are not paying attention to compliance issues?
Hmm. Yeah, I can understand that. We actually went through that. My family reunion is a tax exempt entity. This is this is separate from my parents' foundation, but my
Okay.
family reunion decided to incorporate and become a tax exempt. And it actually was dissolved a couple of years ago because, you know, not, I guess, paying attention to who was supposed to file the information, and so
Right.
comes to find out that someone on the board ended up, like you said, getting it reinstated so that we
Right.
can continue being a tax exempt. I'm trying to make sure I say tax exempt instead of nonprofit from now on. But in order for us to stay active, someone had to refile. So let's see. So I have someone on here that says any special exemptions for companies serving youth, mental and behavioral health conditions, and what's the way to structure a for-profit. Well, I'll handle the for-profit later on, but answer that. How, any special exemptions for companies serving youth, mental and behavioral health conditions?
Yes. So I would say that if you're doing that, then it should be done as it would be advisable to do it as a 501c3 tax exempt organization. And then you have all of the benefits associated with tax exemption. So that would be my answer to that.
Okay, good answer. All right. So let's see. What are the biggest mistakes nonprofits make when applying for tax exempt status, and how can they avoid those mistakes?
Well, one of the biggest mistakes they make is in their articles of incorporation and then their bylaws. So the articles of incorporation is done at the state level, and most states will accept your articles of incorporation the way you file them, right? But the problem with that is that if your articles of incorporation does not include tax exempt language within the articles, or the bylaws, right? Then the IRS will reject them, right? Because they don't meet their standards. Now, the state may say, okay, yeah, we'll incorporate you as a nonprofit, right? And then you send that stuff into the IRS with your application, and they be like, nah, somebody don't know what they're doing. Somebody don't understand how tax exemption work. So they'll reject it. You know what I'm saying? So that's one of
Yeah.
the biggest mistakes that people make is that they're trying to do it on their own without the help of a professional who know what they're doing. Because think about it like this: the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, is going to issue you a license to operate a business without the concern of paying income tax. So
Mm.
they want to know that somebody involved with that organization know what they doing. You know what I'm saying? They not just gonna give you a license, you don't know what you're doing. So
Right.
one of the biggest mistakes that people make is that they trying to do it on their own because they think, well, I just want to help some people. You know, it's a nonprofit. I shouldn't have to pay nobody all that money. And they trying to help people how they trying to help people, and then they charging all that money. So that's one of the biggest mistakes that people make. They're trying to do it on their own and they don't understand that they're asking the IRS to give them a license to operate a business tax free.
Right. That's you're basically getting permission from the people that you're not going to pay, in a sense.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's like, if you're
Right.
not gonna pay us, you definitely better know what you're doing.
Exactly. So exactly. Right. So if you're thinking nonprofit, profit means benefit, right? So if you're thinking nonprofit, then you coming out of the gate, you thinking, well, I got to struggle because I'm just trying to help some people,
Right.
right? And so the mistake that people make is that they thinking that, well, I just want to help some people, so I shouldn't have to pay that much money, or I shouldn't have to pay any money. They see I'm trying to help somebody, so I just do it on my own then. And then they go make all kind of mistakes, and then they waiting 2 years to get an approval from the IRS that they're not going to get.
Man. Oh, it's crazy. But that's why I say you have somebody right here that know what they're doing. So someone asked, do you help with contracting also?
Absolutely. So we have a coaching program that's a 1 year coaching program where we walk organizations, preferably our organizations that we have set up their 501c3 properly, because that's important, right? That is set up properly and it's got the proper language in it, right? So that we can go to the state government and walk through the process with them, preparing them to have everything they need for their state to have a very, very hard time to say no, because we have everything in the documentation that the state require in order to get a state level contract. And once you get a state level contract, then the county contracts are simple. They fall right in line. If the state trusts you, the county will definitely trust you, and then typically after that, federal contracts come into play because the states, a lot of times, once they go through their fiscal year, and then the federal government may send them some additional money, and the federal government fiscal year is October the 1st. So they may have some additional money they give to the states, and then the states say, hey, we're going to go to our providers to see if they want to contract with this additional federal government money that we got. And of course, the answer is going to be yes. So that's usually our approach is we go to the state level government first, get the contracts there, then we go to the county, and then we round back to the state to see if there's any federal dollars that they have available around the federal fiscal year, which is October the 1st.
Nice. All right. So someone said thank you. They appreciate you answering their questions. And then would you talk about owner's draw and payroll salary? Which one optimizes tax exemptions?
So owner's draw typically you're talking about S corps, you're talking about C corps, you're talking about um, you're also talking about LLCs when you start talking about owner's draws. right?
Yeah.
But when you're talking about a 501c3 tax exempt organization, the the founder, right, can be paid a salary. So you can receive a salary. You can also receive reimbursements for startup uh, costs. I wouldn't necessarily consider the reimbursements um, draws, you know. I wouldn't necessarily call them draws when it comes to a tax exempt organization. I would just
Mhm.
call them reimbursements. But you can be paid as the founder, you can be paid a salary to see through the mission of the organization of your 501c3 tax exempt organization. You can also bring your family members on to work within the organization, and also they can receive compensation for the work that they do for the organization.
Right, right. Because remember, you guys, a tax exempt organization is not owned by anyone, correct?
Correct, correct.
Yes.
But it
So
can be
you can't
controlled.
do an owner's draw. Because,
Right. You can't do it on this draw. Right.
yeah, because it's
You know,
not
you can do
owned.
reimbursement, right? You can
Right,
do reimbursement, but you can't do owner's draw. So that's what
right.
I was getting at. Yeah.
Yeah. But hey, that is all the questions that we have. If nobody comes on here and asks anything, if you guys got any questions, put them in the chat. I can't keep Derek on here all night, but I do want Derek to let you guys know how to get a hold of him, how to work with him, give us information on where do we go from here.
So on Instagram, I'm at the Tax Exempt Hero. On Instagram, the Tax Exempt Hero, and also on my website, taxexempthero.com. You can go to taxexempthero.com. There, you can find a lot of information regarding tax exempt status. There are Q&As on the site, so you can go look at the different question, pull the tab down, you'll see the answer. So taxexempthero.com, that's where you can find us. On that site also, there is a link. There's several links there within the site where you can fill out a questionnaire to see if you qualify. If you qualify, then you will be able to book a call with me or one of my team members, right, to move forward. So that's taxexempthero.com.
Y'all get that? Make sure you write it down. I just think it's so great what Derek is doing. I know those of you who have been following me for a while always know that my only regret when I got started is that I did not establish my group home business as a tax exempt business. And so that is one of my regrets. And so that's why I wanted Derek, to take time out of his busy schedule to come and to talk to you guys. Because if you're just getting started, if you haven't set up your business, would suggest doing it as a tax exempt business because y'all do not even want to know how many taxes I pay right now. And I use my tax, I mean my nonprofit, I use my tax exempt business like hand in hand with my group home business. But once your income is so much, you're going to end up paying something if it's not tax exempt. So I would say if you can do it, follow up with Derek, get with him, find out what you need to do, and do it as a tax exempt business because it will really save y'all from having these big fat tax bills that I have. Did you have anything that you wanted to leave them with, Derek, or say before you leave? I don't see any more questions that have came through.
Yeah, like I said, if you have any additional questions, you can also find answers on taxexempthero.com. If you want to go deeper, you want to do a deeper dive, you can complete a questionnaire on there to see if you qualify. And if you qualify, it would allow you to book an appointment with me or one of my team members so that we can get you going, move forward from there, get you started with your tax exempt organization.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you, Derek. Thank you guys that joined this special winning Wednesday. I appreciate you guys showing up. And hey, if nothing else, what do I always say? What Derek is doing. Be a blessing to someone else. All right, you guys. Have